Hello, friends. You are listening to the very first episode of the Practical Tactical Penguin podcast of 2021. I hope you all had a wonderful holiday season. I am the Gun Penguin.
I am John, the Practical Tactical Minimalist.
And we're going to walk you through probably the longest episode we've ever done, if our notes are any indication of what it's going to be like. So I apologize in advance for that, but there's a lot to talk about. A lot has happened in the last couple of months. How has your life been treating you?
Oh man, it's been life.
That's fair. 2020 is over though. We lived.
Yeah, 2020 wasn't horrible for me. A lot of work. I didn't get the nice vacation everyone else got. So, how have you been going? I know you've been working just as much, if not more, than I have.
Yeah, it's been busy. So, I've been doing all my normal, like studio work and doing instrument repair and all that stuff. But also opened a gun store because I'm insane. So that was very time consuming.
Yeah, do you want to talk about it? That's what I was fishing for.
Oh, I see. Well, I appreciate that. You're trying to coax me into doing my own plug. I appreciate that. That's somebody's gotta. Southerners, if Southerners have something that they need to say about themselves, we're just not doing it. It's not happening. I will not brag or plug myself. So the name of the gun store is the Pattern Room in Columbia, South Carolina, and it's really cool. Having a great time doing it, and it's been a blast. So, what have you been shooting lately?
Oh man, not much. With ammo the way it is, I in 2020 I completed my Project 1 gun, which was, I was trying to hit 5,000 rounds, and I ended up just barely breaking that, so it was, I think, around 100 and some change. I rounded down. So a lot of P365. However, since that experiment has been over, I've primarily been shooting Revolver. Yeah, I never thought I would get to that point, and I'm running low on 38 right now, but definitely 38 practice. Reloads are a whole new world, and it's just a completely different dynamic shooting a wheel gun, not polymer. The double action only trigger. There's just a lot of interesting nuance to the Revolver that I'm finding very fascinating. You and I were talking. It was almost like you hit a plateau with traditional defensive, 2020 shooting, and the Revolver kind of lets you learn a completely new skill set, and it kind of makes the hobby or the skill set new and fun again. I don't know if you found that with your project you're working on right now.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, sometimes it makes sense to just switch it up a bit. I mean, for me, I've switched to completely different calibers. I'm shooting AK instead of AR-15. And the two pistols that I focused on the most have been the Makarov, although ammo has now dried up for the Makarov, and a 10mm Glock. So I'm still shooting a semi-automatic pistol, but it is, as you said, it's more of a fun, challenging skill. It's more of a fun challenge learning to shoot this gun that feels completely different than a 9mm pistol. So
absolutely. Well, even with the Makarov, it's such a vintage design, I guess we could say, that it really does have, similar to the Revolver, it's like that old world charm, and it's not super ergonomic or user friendly, but there's just something special about it. And then you're right, 10mm is similar enough to 9mm that there's not a huge learning curve, but it's still something unique and, at least if nothing else, a fun change.
Yeah, and with the Makarov, I heavily modified one of those Fab Defense grips. It didn't fit. The one that I ordered didn't fit either one of my guns when it first arrived. But I sat there with a file one afternoon and was like, I'm gonna just file on this until it fits one of the guns. So I did that, and then I worked on its release mechanism to make it really slick. And the mag changes, anyway, are very fast. And compared to a lot of other designs from that era, the sights on the Makarov are not terrible. some of those other guns have microscopic sights. So I think it's a remarkably workable design. It'd be really cool to see a polymer framed version, which I think exists somewhere. And I'm not just talking about the experimental Russian one. I mean, somebody somewhere makes something with a plastic frame. It may be a Russian design. I want to say it's got a double stack magazine too, but that'd be really cool. I'd love to have that video because it's a cool design. It's a very interesting gun.
It is, yeah. Well, and the Makarov already is such a pleasant shooting gun with so few moving parts that the recoil, the flex, the recoil absorption of a polymer grip would be really compelling, I would think, and it would also cut down quite a bit on the weight because the Mac, while it's slim, it's a chunky boy.
Yeah, it's really heavy. That's really the only problem with that design is the heft. It feels like it's about a third heavier than it needs to be. I'd also happily have one with an aluminum frame as well. Even if they just did some weight reduction of the steel frame, even it would help. So in the gun community, a lot has changed in the last couple of months. We've had this up and down of the raid on Polymer 80 and then the brace letter and the gun community's response to the brace letter. I feel like we should talk a little bit about everything that's happened and about our concerns going forward. I was really pleased with how we responded as a community. We did our bit, with the exception of some incredibly inappropriate and bizarre comments that we saw on the website. But I think we did a very good thing, but we're not out of the woods yet. So if we could let's just recap what happened and why it's bad, because I haven't actually heard a lot of folks explicitly outline why this was so dangerous and what it could have potentially meant for our rights in the long term. So with the Polymer 80 raid, there's sort of been these rumors floating around that the ATF, even during the Trump administration, as we all know, the Trump administration has not been friendly to the Second Amendment. I don't think anyone can really effectively argue against that point. But there were rumors circulating that the ATF, either that the ATF as a whole or that a contingent within the ATF wanted to pursue what are called ghost guns. I hate that. I hate that term. Ghost guns and pistol braces. This group within the ATF felt that pistol braces were being used to circumvent the NFA, and that ghost guns, which have been written into every major piece of firearms legislation in American history, felt that those were incredibly dangerous and needed to go away, because apparently they've been used in a small number of crimes, as as any object that humans have ever made has been used in a small number of crimes, regardless of what it is. I'm sure watches have been used in a small number of crimes. But
those pocket watches used to get pretty robust.
That's right. You could smack somebody in the face with one of those. So they
it was like a nunchuck flail.
That's right. So first they raid Polymer 80 and they're trying to get customer information. It was because of these buy build shoot kits where Polymer 80 would send you not just the jig and the hunk of plastic that's not a gun. That's you do all the stuff that makes it into a gun, but it had additional parts with it that you would use for your build. And for whatever reason, the ATF felt that crossed the line, even though these had existed for a really long time and they didn't do jack shit about it. And you're going to see a running theme with these things that have happened in the last couple of months. The ATF allowing us to have something and then taking it away once it's a big part of the market. So first there's that. And they're trying to get the customer records, and they're showing up at retailers who sold the buy, build, shoot kits, and then they're showing up at the homes of actual customers, end users, who purchased these hunks of plastic and then finished those hunks of plastic into firearms. And then after that, the brace thing had been kind of ongoing with the honey badger situation with Q. But then this letter appears saying that the ATF wishes to change their interpretation of the law to make pistol braces stocks, to make them NFA items, to reclassify pistol braces as stocks. And then they were saying that they would open the NFA registry to to basically put you in a position where you have to register the gun as an SBR. And they were going to waive the tax, but that's really, if there was ever a more just blatant attempt at registration, I can't think of one. I mean, they're basically saying this is an opportunity for us to register 6 or 7 million firearms. I don't recall anything on that scale ever happening. And the gun community responded during the comments period, which was only 14 days, which as far as I know is illegal. I think it's supposed to be 30 or 60 days. The response was so overwhelming. My final count that I saw was like over 50,000 comments, I think, that they withdrew the letter after 7 days. So in a nutshell, explained horribly in the most boring way possible, that's what's happened over the last 2 months. Please say something that will make that make more sense.
I thought you did a really good job. On the NFA's page for comment, the page had over 370,000 views, and they received 73,536 comments at the time that I took this screenshot. So
good Lord.
The gun community reacted quickly, swiftly, and loudly. And yeah, the NFA tucked their tail and was like, just kidding, guys. We'll wait for a more opportune time. And that seems to be the operating status of the ATF is they kind of make very arbitrary and difficult to interpret letters, and then they kind of see what the market does, and whenever the market figures out a way to work around their rules, they change the rules. And with the buy, sell, shoot kits from Polymer 80, at first, everyone was freaking out that they're just raiding Polymer 80 and they're going away forever.
I'm sorry. Do
you remember that?
For some reason, buy, sell, and shoot kit is really funny because I think it sounds like that one is specifically marketed towards stockbrokers. Like you can. I'm sorry. I was gonna say something awful. You construct a firearm in your office, and then you use it to off yourself when the market tanks. It's the buy, sell, and shoot kit. It's great. It's great. Buy Bitcoin. Anyway, please continue. I'm a monster.
No, their main target demographic is definitely crypto day traders and people that are currently purchasing silver right now at its height.
See, you and I are cryptozoological day traders. It's different. We just trade rare animals.
I'll trade you a Flatwoods monster for your dog, man.
Please, I've got a Tasmanian tiger in the back. It's great.
Ooh,
it does bite.
The Panthers.
That's right. That's right. Whatever that weird dinosaur is that lives in the Congo. I got a couple of those too.
Yep. That's a good one. I have been interested with the Panthers. How all over America they're saying Black Panther. Anyway,
yeah. That's an interesting one. Yeah, that's an interesting one. But yeah. Oh, and real quick, while we're talking about that, there are all these people who say that they see mountain lions in my area, in South Carolina, and there are no. Scientists say that there are 0 mountain lions in South Carolina, so that's really interesting.
Yeah, they're not supposed to be there.
No. But anyway, please proceed. That was the worst tangent, and I'm sorry.
I enjoyed it. So I think the issue with Polymer 80 is one, people jump to conclusions before getting all the data, and we've noticed that be a problem quite a few times in the past year. Specifically, I've noticed. But then two, the problem seems to just be with the buy, build, shoot. Is that the right way to say?
Yeah. And you're right. I mean, they're not going after the folks. You're not going after the ones that are just the hunk of plastic in the jig that's, and then you craft a gun out of it. It's just these kids.
Right. And apparently, like a lot of other companies like 80% Arms and Glock Store, don't include the jigs in with the frames. You have to purchase them separately. It's kind of like one of those weird ATF constructive content. Like, so they're just saying that you're obviously intending to sell a firearm by including the complete slide assembly, all the lower parts, the 80% frame that needs to be completed, the jig with all the bits. Like, you're obviously intending, so you're just getting around the tariff and excise taxes. That's the issue that I'm interpreting. I think one of the issues that we're coming into even with the ATF consistently is it's just so obscure. And you have to read between the lines. And at this point, even with Q, the ATF refused to put in writing what their stance was. That is a significant issue. Yeah. Because if it's not in writing, it's my word versus your word. But the issue is your word can put me in prison for the rest of my life, or get my dog killed, or get me killed.
Right.
So, like, I really want that in writing. And the ATF is completely rogue, and this has all been happening under the Trump administration. And Trump is allegedly, according to his hugest, bestest fans, is pro-gun. Right. So I guess what I'm worried about is with the Biden and Harris administration, the ATF is going to be completely unchained.
Yeah. So just real quick to so it is only the buy, build, shoot kits, but it doesn't. I've heard some folks sort of want to equivocate on this and say, well, it's just this small number of the Polymer 80 kits. It doesn't fucking matter, because this is so dangerous, because who is to say how much difficulty you have had in purchasing all the parts, like to make it so that the ATF doesn't pursue you. Like, what if I order the slide and stuff at the same time, just, on the same day, just as part of a different credit card transaction? Like, is that fine? Is it, why does it matter that all that stuff comes with it? That's so arbitrary and strange. Does it matter if I bought the other parts on eBay on the same day? Do I have to wait a week? Should I have bought the parts before? It's so fucking strange. It's still an 80%. It doesn't matter what came in the box with it. It doesn't matter what came in the kit. It's still a hunk of plastic with some gun parts, and then you're doing this work to get it put together.
According to their very own definition, it is not a gun.
Yeah.
So it shouldn't matter what accessories you have in a box with not a gun.
Yeah.
In the same way that it shouldn't matter which rifle parts you have under your bed if you do not have the receiver that it goes to. Like, it just makes zero sense. If it's not a gun, it's not a gun 100% of the time.
Yeah, and I've heard a lot of folks in the gun community doing the bump stock thing, where they're like, well, it's just those kits, and I wasn't interested in those anyway, and I don't care. Well, fuck that. Like, it doesn't matter. This is, anytime one of these arbitrary rulings slips by, and we don't do anything about it, and we don't write letters, and we don't call our representatives, and we just sort of shrug and go, well, I wasn't into that one personally. That's incredibly dangerous. And I've seen a lot of that with this, folks saying, well, it's not the other ones, the kind that I like to have, it's just this other kind. Well, it's still equally dangerous.
Right. The bump stock thing, I mean, we've been talking about that for the length of this show, but the bump stock thing was owned by so few people. I've seen estimates of under 10,000 in circulation that they went after it, and people were like, well, they're right. The bump stock is stupid. 100% it's stupid. The issue with the bump stock ban was that it was done by executive order, and it is a hunk of plastic with a spring that does not in any way, according to their own definitions, change the firearm from a semi-automatic firearm to a fully automatic firearm. It is an accessory.
Yeah.
By allowing an accessory to be regulated like that, they opened the door to all this, and Trump also said, take the guns first, due process second. So, like, he wasn't super worried about it, and he's had very negative comments towards ghost guns and suppressors and a whole list of things. So the problem with the bump stock ban was it allowed the ATF, I think that they felt as though ghost guns, Polymer 80s, 80% receivers, they weren't as popular, or because I still see people all the time not giving a shit about building your own, which I think is neat, but it's still not as accepted So I feel like they got emboldened because of the bump stock thing to go after the ghost guns, which have been on their list for since they've been out.
Yeah.
I've seen articles about. Remember the video from California, the ghost gun that holds 60 clipazine
Yeah.
thing?
Yes, I do.
So it's been on their that was I think 2015. It's been on their radar for a long time. I think the bump stock ban and Trump leaving the White House just gave them the final push to try, and then they got emboldened for going after the braces. And I think they honestly just underestimated because they went after Q first. Two representatives were warning about this last spring that they were going to try to reclassify rifle caliber pistols, for lack of a better phrase. And I think they underestimated how the pushback would be. And it's kind of like whenever they release the qualifying objective factors for an SBR, it's like at that moment the ATF realized they had fucked up.
Yeah.
Because that was a response like I've never seen for anything. The closest we've gotten so far was M855, I believe. 7
Yes.
and 6 got under 10,000. It's just interesting to see the pushback on pistol braces, and those same people seemingly not caring about polymer 80. They were literally going to people's doors and confiscating firearms or throwing them in prison. That is terrifying.
I mean, there's so much fucking ideological inconsistency here. I've noticed that, whenever the folks who have just ceaselessly defended Trump and all the things that happened during his administration, when you raise this stuff, they say, well, I don't have a polymer 80. I didn't have a bump stock. He's just he's playing 5D chess. He's letting some things go to win whatever this other battle is. They were literally showing up at folks' doors, as you said, and saying, I am seizing your property. You will not be reimbursed. This is mine now. This belongs to me. I don't recall any other time that something like that happened, and everybody just kind of shrugged their shoulders and said, I'm not worried about this. That was a general response. And when we were worried about it for a couple of days, and then it was over. So why do we only worry about the things that we ourselves own? Why is that a characteristic of the gun community? And also, why do folks ceaselessly defend Trump in the face of all of this evidence that he is not pro-Second Amendment?
I'll start with the second one first because I've been thinking about this a lot, because I'm more right than you are in the centrist scale, and even I've seen how dirty the media has done Trump for 4 years, and even I occasionally get the pushback like, well, fuck him. Like, oh yeah, let's hope Trump gets another 4 years just to fuck with the media. So, and I even feel that, like, I think the contrarian American rebel spirit thing is real. And there's just something about seeing people get so frustrated by him that makes me a little bit happy. Because it's kind of all a joke to me, which I know is not a great way to phrase that. But, like, I think the drain the swamp thing really spoke to a lot of people that are disenfranchised with politics in general. And it's kind of the cognitive dissonance of once you accept something and get labeled as something. So the media and the far leftists, like I won't talk to my grandparents anymore people, have been smearing Trump supporters for 4 years. That at some point it's like I can't criticize Trump because you're taking fire from so many different angles. You just kind of like double down. And we've seen that even in Instagram comments and YouTube comments and stuff. It's like you'll get the most asinine, near magical level of stupid comments. And then you're like, well, that's just factually inaccurate. And the person doubles down. And I would be so embarrassed if I was wrong publicly about something. And I feel like you're the same way. We constantly just want to know the truth. And I will have a bunch of examples later on in this podcast, but when someone criticizes someone that I voted for or didn't vote for, or someone I want to vote for or want to win or don't want to win, like I just want to know what is true. And I feel like the base human character trait is to double down, regardless of how stupid it is, just as a survival thing. And the Trump supporters who are willing to vocally write about it on social media take so much flack that when they hear something that is it's objectively true. They just double down.
I see. I see. Yeah, I mean, I guess it is just human nature. I think you and I are kind of the outliers in that way. Is it's just it's important. It's important to you. You and I obsess over like details in our videos. I think about, for instance, you watch a gun video. It's incredibly badly researched. There's just Wikipedia stuff that's regurgitated. They watched the Such video and pulled the information out of that, and now they're just repeating all the Such information.
Yep.
You and I really just we fixate on correctness, and I do think that's a skill that we've lost. But as you said, I guess it is understandable the way we attack one another. Both sides, because the left. The left's media might be slightly more dominant, but the right also has a media machine that is equally ready to attack the other side, and I'm so sick of it. I'm so tired of it. I'm tired with this obsession with one-upmanship and the conflict rather than correctness. It's really frustrating.
Oh, I totally agree with you, and I also just want to reiterate that I wasn't taking the right side on it and making the right seem blameless. 100% they do the same thing. After all, for my entire lifetime, faux news, Fox News, has been a major contributing factor to this type of division. However, I see the right side more just from my familial structure and friend structure. So I feel most confident commenting on the right side. So that's where that was coming from. 100% they do it too.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And you mentioned these, folks saying, I'm not going to talk to my grandparents because they believe something that I find ideologically repulsive. That's another one of the things that has gotten us into this situation, because you do have to have a conversation for these things to be resolved. Like maybe if you explained bump stocks to someone on the other side of the political spectrum, or maybe you explained braces, or what suppressors, whatever it is, you're probably not going to convince them. But even if we only convince 1 or 2 out of 100, that makes a massive difference on a national scale. And we've become so completely unwilling to have conversations that it's sort of shut down progress in a completely different way. And we're going to talk a lot more about this later, but all these new people have joined the gun community, and a lot of them are from completely different ideological walks of life. And if we're not willing to have a conversation with them, they're not going to stick around. Why the hell would they if this division sort of carries over into the Second Amendment conversations and community? It's in 2021, for the love of God, anyone listening to this, just try to, even if you find someone just disgusting, the things that they talk about, the things they believe, you hate it. It makes you so mad. It just makes your blood boil. Just still try to have a conversation with them. Just give it a shot. Just take a stab at it, please. Because it's the only way that things are going to get better. And that's one of the reasons that we were able to back down the ATF on pistol braces, is because a lot of these new folks did get involved. Some of them are on my my Discord. I hear from these folks. I hear from them in the comments under videos. So just have a conversation. Rant over.
Nah, disagree. Too nuanced.
That's right.
Too reasonable.
That's right.
Where's the outrage?
That's right. So what do you think the future holds with Trump on his way out and Biden-Harris on their way in? What do you think the ATF problems are going to look like in the next 2 years?
Well, one benefit of any time a Democrat has the White House, the executive branch, is that the Republicans just try to, completely button down the hatches and lock everything down. And so that's one good thing, I guess, is when Trump was in, a lot of stuff got slipped through that if Obama had done it, it would have been outrage. So
sure.
that I'm sure 100% they've already stated, I've read their proposals, they're going to try backdoor assault weapons ban through NFA registration, which for a lot of states completely bans it. So like in Illinois, we can't have NFA items, even if we follow all the federal guidelines. I'm sure they'll try that, but honestly, I think it's going to be business as usual. The thing I was very interested about is I've seen numbers anywhere from like 6 to 10 million new gun owners. That is a staggering amount in 1 year, to the point where it could be completely depoliticizing of firearms. A lot of Republicans and conservatives already were armed. So if we're getting that many new gun owners, a lot of them are going to be Democrats or liberals or leftists. And that, you and I have been talking constantly about how firearms and gun control have been a civil rights issue pretty much since the inception. And it will be curious to me to see, because you're right, out of 350 million, 8 million new gun owners is one of the most massive, like, pull switches that I've seen in my lifetime. And that could 100% take gun control off the table if the Democrats feel like they will get significant pushback. And you were saying how even with Obama, you would write and be like, hey, I'm a liberal, I don't agree with your gun control stance. That's what we need, is we need people within parties pushing back against the parties and kind of going back to the doubling down. It feels like the right and left get so much pushback from the other sides that you're not willing to criticize your own party. And the Republicans need to do it for sure, but the Democrats need to do it as well. And now with all these new gun owners, I mean, if we get 15, 20 million gun owners who are like, no, not one more inch, it's over. There will never be new gun control. What do you think?
Yeah. No, I mean, I think you're absolutely right, and I think this sort of leads us to, we're going to talk about some of the ways that the gun community prevents this from happening. But before that, I hope that you're right. I mean, I hope that this has sort of sealed guns as a civil right, because increasingly more folks on the left are seeing it that way. You know, a gun, regardless of how you feel about them personally, there's no denying that they are the defensive tool of our age. If you want to fight police oppression, a gun is the sword of our time. A gun is going to be required to protect yourself. It's just the way it is. And past civil rights struggles saw that immediately. It was obvious to them. And it was also more obvious to folks in the past that gun control was largely racist and specifically oppressive in that very specific sort of way. But we run the risk of, as that sort of newness wears off, we run the risk of folks going, well, the danger has passed, right? Society is more stable. We've got the vaccine, down the line a year from now. If we don't do our part, though, things will just go back to the way they were. Those folks will sell their guns. The danger is past, because that's human nature. And because we don't have a Republican president in the White House, we won't get that advanced heads up from folks in the administration who are Second Amendment friendly. That there is going to be things will just pop up all of a sudden like they used to. So that's a bit worrisome. But we've got to hang on to these. We've got to hang on to these people. We've got to keep them around. Now, do you think the character of ATF interpretation and letters will change under the Biden-Harris administration, or do you think it'll pretty much roughly be the same? We'll just see more chicanery from day to day.
It is already so silly, like the level of obscurity in their. Let me look up the correct terminology. Okay, so it was called the objective design. It was covering objective design features, right? So in their list, they determined whether a weapon with a stabilizing brace was designed or redesigned to be an SBR. So the brace wasn't exactly what was being banned, but it was more banning a feature set on an entire classification of guns because of the presence of a brace. It went through type, caliber, weight, length, length of pull, attachment method, brace features and design features like aim points, secondary grip, sights and scopes, peripheral accessories. But each point was so open to interpretation, it was more confusing than not having the objective classifications in the first place. If this is the level of intellectual work the ATF is putting out right now, I can't see how it would get worse. Can you?
I do. I mean, I think it could get much worse. You know, I really that's the one thing that's become obvious to me. You know, during the Trump administration, that the ATF is always capable of more weirdness. You know, whatever we think is the height of illegality and strangeness, they can absolutely take it a step further. Like, let me pitch this to you. For instance, what if they get to a place where Fat D, isn't that what it is? Firearms and Technology Division. What if it gets to a point where they say, any muzzle device with any sort of expansion chamber is a suppressor? You know, there's already sort of a precedent for that, because they put the Colt, whatever it is, whatever the muzzle device it was on the XM1777.
Yeah, it was like the barrel extension and the blast can.
Yeah, they classified that as a suppressor, even though it's just a couple of expansion chambers and like a baffle. It's not really quieting the gun. It's just containing the explosion somewhat. You know, I look at for instance, on the front of the AK-74 SU. That booster has an expansion chamber in it that collects gas and uses it to run the action harder. What if they get to a point where they classify compensators, for instance, as, since they do technically have expansion chambers, and they do alter the way the explosion leaves the front of the gun, depending on how they want to interpret what a suppressor is. You know, they could take all of the known compensators out into a room, put decibel meters near them, and you know, if they limit the sound even by 1 or 2 decibels, they could say, well, that's an expansion chamber that has turned that compensator into a suppressor, and they are now NFA items. And by the way, you can alter the decibel level of something just by moving the point from which you measure it.
Right, I was going to say that even every single blast can, blast avoider, linear comp on the market, if the decibel reader is put near the shooter's ear, it will dramatically lower the amount of decibels.
Exactly. So you see, I mean, they can always do some weird stuff.
For sure, that's worrisome, because like if you can define something as anything with no reliance on it being factual, as we've already seen with bump stocks and now with the reclassification of pistol braces, like 100% it could get worse. I guess what I'm saying is, like, this list that I have printed out here was written by lawyers with zero cost, like, consideration, paid with tax dollars. They could hire the best lawyers in the world, and they put out, I mean, this, if I was in a pre-law class, I would have gotten a D- for this. And this was a federal document. I just can't imagine how it gets worse. I can see what you're saying. If you're just redefining stuff willy-nilly, it can 100% get silly. But like, this is an atrocious document just from a legal perspective.
I see what you're saying. You're saying like you're looking at this more holistically. Like, I was looking at it just from the sense of, you know, how does it impact us, the individual shooters, day to day? You know, of course it can get worse. I see what you're saying though. You know, you're saying this is a proposed move that would literally cost just an absolutely, utterly inconceivable amount of money. I mean, it would be like one of the most expensive undertakings. You know, of any individual government agency. Impossible. You know, it is impossible. Yeah, I mean, you know, and as I said in my letter, I made that point when I wrote in. I said, you know, this, unless you're intending to hire 50,000 new agents to perform all of these activities that will need to be performed day to day, unless you're planning to do that, this is impossible and there's not enough money in the budget, the whole of our GDP would go into rounding up braces.
I have an anecdotal example for you. So Illinois has a FOID card, firearm owner identification card, right? You have to apply for a FOID card. I believe it's $10 for 5 years, just in order to touch a firearm, purchase ammunition. So like, it's super unconstitutional. They're currently trying to, before COVID, they were trying to fight it with the FOID program. It's horrible, totally unconstitutional. However, it costs a bazillion dollars. I don't know the exact numbers because we weren't planning on talking about this, but it costs an obscene amount of money. And the problem was they were looking at expanding it because they have 30 days from application to get you the FOID card. Right now, it's somewhere between 6 to 9 months. You're delayed your right to purchase a firearm. It's just as bad, if not worse, for concealed carry licenses. However, like they diverted a bunch of funds to help increase the operating capabilities of the FOID card because the wait times are just getting ridiculous, right? However, the mayor and governor, I don't want to be slanderous, but they diverted some of the funds for other stuff, and now the funds aren't there. And so it's just a nightmare mess of bureaucracy and corruption, right? This whole program relies on you sending an application and money with all of your information to the place, and they can't even process them. Now imagine they have to hire field agents to go door to door looking for a piece of plastic and rubber in every single home in America. Not only do they have to go door to door, they have to somehow compel you to give it to them. And then when you lost it in a boating accident or something, don't give it to them. They have to figure out a way to find it or confiscate it. It's not possible. Like, I can't think of a single way, unless people comply. There's so many of them at this point. It's common use. You're never getting rid of them. And even if you do get rid of them, I can buy a $200 3D printer on Amazon and print one myself. The cat's out of the bag. Pandora's box is open. I'm sorry, you're never stopping pistol braces now. And there's not a single court in the like. This will get overturned immediately. It'll take a lawsuit. It'll take millions of taxpayer dollars. It'll take some rich benefactor to sponsor someone who gets snagged with a pistol brace. But you can't qualify pistol brace being legal or not based on length of pull. I'm 6'3", my wife is 5'2". If we're using the pistol brace as intended, we will need a different size brace. Caliber. What if I have a pistol brace on a .22 long rifle? You can have a .454 Casull revolver. Like, every single point they tried to clarify is not enforceable at all.
Yeah, and they're saying, oh, we're going to open the NFA up and we'll expedite the process and waive the fee. Even like what would that entail? Even they can't process applications as it is. It's the wait time's up to 6 to 8 months right now, if not longer. They would be if let's say compliance rate was 25%. Even then, people would be waiting 6-7 years, even if they hired 1,000 people to get this done. It's just not. That part of it's not feasible either. But back to what you were talking about, the sort of individual criteria. The idea that the ATF is going to define where my fucking zero should be on my gun, that is incredibly bizarre. That's like the government controlling what sort of tires you can purchase and put on your car. Like what brand of tires. Like, we only accept Goodyear here in South Carolina. That is incredibly fucking strange. Just very, very, very odd. And it's already odd enough as it is with the sort of can we not accessories that go on that might be able to go on the front end of is a brace with one extra, or a foregrip with one extra degree angled either direction okay? It's already absurd, so now let's add 8 new absurd criteria to the whole thing. And also, too, what's going to happen? There will be a bunch of really strange confrontations because there's no way for them to go and sort out every individual situation. So there's going to be a bunch of weird confrontations where an ATF agent confronts somebody at the range and it causes an incident, it was just going to make a huge mess. It was going to probably induce violence as well. And I was dreading that. It was absolutely inevitable. I was just holding my breath like, God, please let everyone keep their heads here and not lose it. But the gun community for years has been saying, this is going to be the time we're going to rise up. And I was looking at it like, oh my God, if this is put into actual practice, like I'm terrified. I was terrified of what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Did you have any of those concerns?
Yeah. No, yeah, that would have been bad. I think that just like every other conflict, a lot of the social media posturing is hype. Like they wouldn't actually do what they're saying they're going to do. Even in the Revolutionary War, it was like, what, 3%? That's where we get threeper from. Actually,
yeah. Now I want to talk about that though. We need to talk about the 3%ers thing because this is one of those we're going to talk a bit about motherfuckers making wild historical claims, but I want to talk about this real quick.
Go for it.
In any large scale conflict, the total population that ends up fighting and working in sort of direct support roles to the folks directly fighting in the conflict is always about 3%. Like, that isn't some special number. Like, y'all aren't some special motherfuckers. The special 3%, the 3% of all Spartans who stood up against the Persian Empire. That is, it's stupid. It's in almost every major conflict, that is roughly the percentage of folks who fight or work with the military in a supporting role, because the rest of the population is doing something else. Now, I know the Revolutionary War is different because, some folks were loyalists and were fighting on the other side, and it was really technically a civil war if you want to get technical about it. But even so, that number is completely normal. That is not a weird number. That is not a special number. That is exactly the number that I would expect to see looking at statistics for fighting forces during that period of time. All right, that's the end of my historical rant.
Yeah, I saw this number recently. I don't know if it's true or not, but it sounds right that there's 10 support troops for every combat troop in our current military. So that would be the 10%. That sounds right. Or the 8%ers or something like that. So what you're saying is I need to get rid of my patch collection of all my sheepdog creeper stuff.
Well, let's put it even to that number that you just gave. It's even, that's even accounted for within the 3%. Like the actual fighting force would really be like 0.5. Well, let's say 0.2 or 0.3% at any given time, because obviously that number cycled out during that period. Folks would get burned out. They'd go home. They would die of disease at Valley Forge, and someone new would come in their place. But yeah, so that's that 3% accounts for the support troops as well. Now, if you look at the total support structure, like folks who were maybe camp followers, then the number does increase some. But that number is also ever changing and shifting as well. Although support troops during that period didn't work the way they work now. That's sort of they didn't have sort of specialization in that sort of specific way, especially in the Continental Army. The British Army was more likely to have some specialized troops. But in the Continental Army, some guy wasn't a cook like full time, like he just cooked in the evenings, so that's a little bit different. But anyway, I don't want to go too far down this rabbit hole. But I fucking hate the gun community, and both the right and the left, just all political sides have this terrible tendency to twist history to make it something that is not, and we're gonna really go hard on that in a little bit, but. Just wanted to get that out of the way.
I have my notes here, and not to do some inside baseball behind the scenes, but next to we had pistol brace reversal, and then I actually wrote a note before that topic that said, "Bring up the threepers, Punisher, and this is the way." Because I was hoping you were going to go off on this rant. I'm using my fountain pen. I'm using my fountain pen, and I literally have the note. So I'm still gonna work in "This is the way" and the Punisher, but we got that one out of the way.
Well, I like that we're also using matching fountain pens right now, like writing, taking our notes. And the other thing I'm really sick of in much the same way is this sort of just blind support of law enforcement that comes along with this for the same reasons. It's a complete misunderstanding and ignorance of the numbers. I saw this post on Instagram that was like 250 or 300 officers have been shot and killed in the line of duty since the beginning of of 2020. Yeah, well, they fucking killed 1,000 motherfuckers. That's not don't just throw that stat out there like that. That's completely misleading. And all the people under it are going, yes, we have to support them. We cannot let bad things happen to them. Well, I agree with you. No one should die. We should want to protect every group. But the cops kill a fucking lot more other people. There are a lot more dead civilians than dead cops, and those numbers should be mentioned alongside one another because it's misleading to do otherwise. Instead, we should be talking about protecting humans in general.
I just thought of a dark joke.
Do it.
Not only are cops more likely to kill civilians, but cops are also most likely to kill cops.
That's true, and their wives. Oh,
and their wives. Well, no, they just abuse them. They don't kill them usually.
Right, usually. Yeah.
Yeah, you and Deviant. I'll do a plug for your one of your podcast / video episodes. Is you and Deviant talked about that a bit, and it was insightful for sure.
Yeah, we talked about that for a long time. Mm-hmm. That was like a 30-minute, just that topic was like 30 minutes.
But really though, in this community, you might have only heard that for that long for that entire week. It's not a common sentiment. So just the fact that it was out there and viewed and well received, I think is reassuring personally.
Well, I appreciate that. So why does the gun community not want to analyze these numbers more closely and these historical moments? Because the truth is a lot more interesting than this sort of fiction that we've constructed.
That is a good question. You and I were talking about that. Do you want to get into the See You on the Ridge?
Yeah, let's do it. So we're going to use as an example. Just as an, and I don't mean to cut you off here, but I just want to explain sort of in a nutshell what we're doing. As an example, we are going to dig into Valor Ridge a little bit, not because they're the only people doing this, but they're one of the most popular offenders and one of the worst offenders because they're habitual line steppers. I mean, it's just fucking Reed can't keep his facts straight. He goes off on these historical rants. He doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about. He's just making some shit up. He's bragging about his qualifications and just saying some wild shit. So anyway, just to get that out of the way, please continue.
No, it was definitely a Reed video. He got his analogies mixed up and accidentally proved the point he was arguing against. And he was, talking about slaves and free men and how the Romans. So what you're really arguing for is either slavery or a lot of illegal immigration because the net tax gain from consumption from it just don't watch Reed videos for constructive insight into historical facts. Probably not philosophy with John Lovell is not a class you should probably take. But I think the problem
real quick though.
Sure, yeah, go for it.
Real quick though, his Roman analogy was actually worse than that. He said,
"Oh, break it down, brother. You're the Rome expert."
He said Rome was sacked by the barbarians because they didn't appreciate it.
Oh, there you go. I remember that.
Yeah. Which and of course the rest of the shit he was saying about Rome was fucked up and wrong too. But that was the thing that caught my attention. That just made me go, holy fuck! Are you serious right now? Because he's making this point that we should stand up against the oppressive government, and then he finds a historical example where the oppressed people did stand up, and then he says he supports the great the great slave owning imperial power that enslaves every group that doesn't submit to it. That was absolutely fucking baffling, because the context of the barbarian invasions, and I put that very much in quotes. These are people who were remarkably Romanized. Some of them would have served as auxiliaries, or in some cases actually served in the main legions. Then they go home and they don't like the circumstances in their province, so they decide that they're going to fix that. And he decides to side with the fucking Romans on that to support his point. Jesus, God.
Because they're slaves and free men, and we need to resist the tyrants.
That's right. So, barbarians bad, slave-owning Romans good.
I think what you're pointing out very efficiently, and that was a perfectly enjoyable rant, but a lot of the... I think the right term would be gun community, but I'm trying to think of a more apt term. They almost look at historical characters through a third grade history class lens, where there's these archetypes, and they're not real people, and they have to defend them with dogma, almost on the level of religious dogma. And even the left does it. They do it where everyone in the olden days was a slave owning conqueror, and we need to rip down their statues. You must abide by today's social norms, or else you're a horrible person. And then the right view is infallible deities, right? The founders, they talk about them like they're gods. And not only was the Constitution designed to be malleable, it's not a religious text, but also history isn't black and white. Historical characters aren't some new species or different species. They're us. Everything is gray. Yeah. And one of the main problems is the educational system. I don't want to rag on the education system or teachers, but you're never taught this. What you're taught is about, George Washington and the cherry tree, and that Abraham Lincoln never tells a lie. And even in higher education, you have to search out American history classes, I could have successfully gone through my entire advanced education without learning any of this. I had to seek it out on my own. You're a voracious reader about Roman history and stuff. It's not you did learn a lot of that in college, but it's not common is what I'm getting at. So I don't fault anyone for misunderstanding or not attributing correctly, but at the same time, it's very grade school, the level of understanding people have about most history, if not just American history. It's definitely whitewashed and glossy for the sake of politicalness. I don't know, it's almost like you can't criticize. You either take the Noam Chomsky, America has blood on their hands, or you take the founders knew everything, don't touch the Constitution, it's from Jesus. There's no middle ground of nuance where they were just people, bro, and they got a lot of stuff right, but they also got a lot of stuff wrong, and this wasn't supposed to be the end recipe. This was just the starting place.
Yeah, and we weren't supposed to screw around too much with the sort of base idea, but everything after that's up for change and up for grabs, and that's why we immortalize the things that are not supposed to change in a certain very specific legal way, and didn't do that with other things, So, and I also want to be really clear. My big problem with this, I'm not expecting other folks. So it's my formal education is in history. That's my deal. That's literally the only thing. I'm an idiot. That's the only thing in this world that I have some meager knowledge about is that. So I understand that's a different position than most folks are in, but I'm not going to present myself as an expert, even with that being my educational background. But I have a big problem with somebody like Reed or John Lovell presenting themselves as experts. Now, Reed says that he has assorted academic qualifications, and maybe he does. I don't know. He says that he almost has a PhD, but he didn't do the PhD or something. I don't know.
He's missing one class, PhD. 1 credit hour, and he will be a doctor.
That's right. He has four master's degrees and stuff, but they're both presenting themselves as being experts. And back to you were talking about the deification. I remember John Lovell he was reviewing this book about Alcibiades, but it was historical fiction. And he was presenting it as like being a biography of Alcibiades, and he's like talking about the character of this Greek commander as though his deeds in this historical fiction and his character is the actual Alcibiades. And I was listening to this thinking, like, are you fucking with me right now? You gotta be fucking with me right now. You gotta be fucking with me right now. Was the video
released on April 1st?
It was not, unfortunately. So I don't like folks presenting themselves as experts because their subscribers are taking this as fact.
Right.
You and I both make a point always to say, I don't want you to take my word for anything. I want you to follow behind me because I make a lot of mistakes. I'm a fallible human. Probably 25% of the stuff that I think I know is wrong because it's just the way humans collect information and store it in their noggins. 25% of it is probably just completely incorrect, pure bullshit. And when you see these folks that are presenting their knowledge as absolute fact, and that's the other issue. Now that we've talked about the historical problems, the next big thing that we need to talk about, we need to talk about the how blatantly partisan rants from folks like Valor Ridge are turning away new gun owners and are preventing guns from becoming a civil right. It's preventing the very thing that they want from actually happening. And then we also need to talk about this. They're presenting their ideas as this is the only right way. If you don't believe this, you're an idiot. All folks on the left are stupid, mentally ill dum-dums, and everybody who's not as far right as we are is also a big stupid dum-dum. And that's doing some serious damage. That's one of the things that inside makes my stomach kind of churn and makes me say, God, I don't know if we're gonna get there with this one. I don't know if we're gonna be able to hang on to all these people.
No, I think you're right. We'll definitely shed quite a few of them. Less so now, though, because I think especially on, social media, YouTube, there's a lot more personality types and people with different backgrounds and political affiliations. I mean, just in our little circle, we have a Tactical Girlfriend, we have Sapper Gentleman. You and I are probably more centrist, but still not the normal, far right that you get with the Valor Ridge. I think that we're starting to see a lot more diversity in the viewpoints and perspectives. And like, I'm white, middle class, I would have never considered, the police were never hostile to me. I've only been pulled over once, I've never had any interaction with the police. So it takes some sort of, and all the police officers I know are awesome. But like, it would take some sort of external viewpoint for me to be able to put myself in their shoes and to see their perspective. And I feel like finally we're getting that diversity in, at least online, the gun community. And like, my local ranges are packed with people of all types. And it's not just a 50-year-old white dude thing anymore. At least I feel in my area. What are you seeing down by you?
I'm seeing the same thing. The gun community, well, I don't feel like it's a community yet. Like, we haven't brought these folks in to the point that I feel like they're a part of us yet. Like they're sort of able to, they don't feel like they can freely contribute, I guess. And I think a lot of that's tied to some of the issues that we're talking about now. But I'm definitely seeing that our overall makeup does look different.
Right. Well, and yeah, they're just freshmen, right? There's always a acclimating period, but hopefully we don't have them drop out of school before they get to be a sophomore.
Yeah, no kidding. Because, let's say if you go to a new school and you show up the first day and there's a senior there who's screaming, socialist abortion leftists tearing down our Christian nation, aborting 5-year-old babies in the 72nd trimester. What sort of country is this?
Can you imagine
and then
feeding fetuses to communists? That is their favorite food.
Yeah.
We need to bring back tar and feathering.
Yeah, that's a.
See
we
you
just
on the
accidentally
ridge.
wrote a read, Ran. Yeah, and I'll see you on Ruby Ridge. Yeah, that's what they're coming into, and I don't know what the fuck they're gonna think about that, because that's really off-putting. Like, that's when you get to a new school and you're like, man, these people are gonna fucking beat me up. Like, that's that's what that must feel like, because it's being presented, and so John Lovell and Valor Ridge do this very differently. John Lovell is presenting it in this really sort of arrogant, smirky way, like, I have it figured out and you don't. You silly atheist leftists, you don't have it figured out, but I have it all figured out, because my religion and life philosophy has granted me all of the answers in life. But then you have Reed Hendricks screaming, I've had it figured out the whole time. When I was getting my second master's degree, we were learning that Karl Marx was having 7 abortions a day for 6 years, reducing the entire American population to homosexuality. And meanwhile, Patriot Nurse dances with a flag in the background, listening to meditation music. So,
that was actually worship, not meditation.
Yeah, that's true. She'd probably be very offended that I called it.
Oh, she would,
I called it meditation.
The last like 15, 20 minutes of her live streams is also cold reading the audience and praying for specific things for people she doesn't know. And she just cold reads. I'm not joking. It's every single live stream.
She's like, I'm hearing a G. Does anybody have a G?
No,
Anybody
that's literally what she'll be like, okay, so the Lord is placing on my heart that someone is dealing with heart problems. So if you're out there dealing with heart problems, Lord, please be with you. It's like, so wait, half your audience of 50-year-old boomers.
Oh!
She literally cold reads for like 20 minutes. I'm not joking. And then she takes super chats.
Oh, man, that is super funny. I did not know that.
I watch every single one.
And then, meanwhile, she does flag dancing in the background.
It was worship.
That's right.
Okay, so I need you live not live, but edited in your voice. This is not faked. This is not a voice recording software or a deep fake. I need you to, because I've already trained with John Lovell. He's awesome. I love him. We're ragging on him a little bit, but it's in good fun. I want to train with him again. He's awesome. I want you to commit to me that you're going to go with me and let me film it, and we're going to take classes at Valor Ridge eventually.
You know what? I will absolutely do it. We will be thrown, because Reed absolutely cannot take any criticism or jokes whatsoever.
Oh, no. It'll be a nightmare for him.
He just fucking can't. Like, we are going to be kicked out.
It'll be the most difficult $1,000 he's ever made. However, we're going to have a blast. 2, you're going to have to buy iron sights for the first time in like 5 years. And 3, I've always wanted to take his class. It's beautiful. I like him. I want to take his class. And I want you to go with me because I think it will be absolutely hysterical. And it's going to be a nightmare expensive. So, like, we can share a hotel or something. But, like, I want you to go with me to that class because, 1, I want to film it just so we have proof. And then 2, I think we need to see him in person before we make our parody YouTube channel.
That's true. No,
3,
I
really want to add the Valor Ridge certificates to my training binder. I honestly, no joke, I want to take classes, but I want you to go with me.
I will do it, and we will buy shirts, and then I will wear the Colonial Gibbon with that. Like, so first of all, I don't know if anybody's seen, all the times that I've posted this meme in videos, but like, if you look really closely at the Valor Ridge guy, like, something is way fucking wrong with his face. Like, that guy's face is fucking fucked up. Like, he looks like a very concerned Gibbon if you look at it really closely. Like, who designed that face to look like that? Like, he looks like he knows that musket is gonna misfire. Like, he knows, I didn't load this properly. It is 100% gonna misfire. And I'm going to be killed by these loyalists.
There's some things.
Just take a look at that.
There's some things that once you see them, it's like that meme online where it's like, do you see a young woman or an old woman in the picture? I forget what they're called. But, perspective photos, right? It just depends on how your eyes see them. And then I saw this meme where the Kentucky Fried Chicken, Colonel Sanders, someone's wife thought that the bow tie was the little stick figure body. And now it's like all I see. You can't not see the stick figure. I never once had taken a second look at the Valor Ridge logo until you sent me a picture of a gibbon. And now, I literally, every logo I see, every time I see his little user profile picture, it is all I see. It is uncanny. He literally probably went on Fiverr and hired someone to make his vector image. And they were like, well, I don't, just do this photo. No one will notice. No one did notice except for the gun penguin. And now the Practical Tactical Minimalist. And now literally everyone that listens to this, that's all I can see. You should post it on Instagram. Link your Instagram and post it on Instagram.
You know what? I'm doing it. It's like it's like whoever on Fiverr had like never seen a human before. Like they're like, I think this is what a human looks. You know, I think that he actually paid a gibbon on Fiverr, and the gibbon was like, "Yep, that's what things look like." So it just went with that.
Those scientists need to get on that because he was supposed to be writing a book or a screenplay or something, and he accidentally got on Fiverr, made an account, and was selling vector images.
You know, if enough monkeys work on novels, they eventually design vector images on Fiverr. But I will, in all seriousness, I will go with you to a Valor Ridge class, and we will get kicked out on the first day because I'm argumentative and terrible. And also, I'll do it. We're doing it.
Correction, you'll get kicked out on the first day. I'm getting my certificate, and then also that sounds great. So it's a deal.
Yeah, that's probably true. Also, you're going to find out that very quickly that because I have not had iron sights on a rifle in about 10 years, I'm not even sure that I remember how to shoot with irons on a rifle. So what's the deal with, I love that Reed will be like, this is the way that I did it 20 years ago, so this is like how we do it now. You know, this is what you have to do. It's that old, like, I hate when people are like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But yeah, just because something still works doesn't mean that there's not a fucking way better option that you should be learning how to use instead. That's a dumb thing to say.
Well, that's actually a really good transition into your AK talk because you're right. Like, just because something works doesn't mean it's ideal, right? Or even the best option. And I've noticed a lot of times, like my pencil build, I just have irons on it because I wanted my specific goal was to be as light and sleek as possible, right? I understand that I'm losing by putting the MRO on my other one. I understand that I lost a significant amount of utility. The MRO is faster, it's easier, it's more precise, 100% of the time. No questions asked. But the MRO, I paid like $350 or whatever. They're like $400 normally. The ScalarWorks mount, I could have gotten a cheaper mount. I spent like $110 or something on Big Daddy Unlimited. So like iron sights are $50 to $100, like $200 if you want to get the really good ones. And then an optic is $5, $6, $7, $8, $9, $2,000. Like you can pretty much spend whatever you want on optics. So a lot of people take that to mean I'm okay with iron sights. Why would I spend $3,000 on a Night Force? The issue with that is the Night Force is better in every conceivable way other than your financial output, right? So just because one thing works, it can also not be ideal. Revolvers are not better than modern automatics in any category other than maybe caliber. You can get revolvers in really niche, purpose-driven calibers. But like, I just like them. They're just fun. I cannot wait to go back and put another 100 rounds through my 38. I want a 22 revolver. I want a 357 revolver. You keep talking me into a 44 special. Like, I just like them. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? We both want a 10 millimeter Ruger just because it would be sweet. Is that more practical than a Glock 20? Absolutely not. You would be absolutely ridiculous to suggest that a 10 millimeter revolver is better at literally anything than a Glock 20. However, they're fun. They're cool. They look cool. I want to take pictures of them, and I want to shoot them constantly. And you're having a similar experience right now with the AK, I think. Do you want to get started talking about that?
Yeah. No, I mean, this is definitely exactly the same thing. So, you know, I think we both take issue with folks saying this thing that I like that's inconvenient is just as good as this better thing. And I'm saying that to justify a choice that I've made. Right? I'm really, that really pisses me off because I'm a revolver shooter as well. I love revolvers. I love them. In fact, I like shooting them more than automatics. I think we both feel that way.
Yeah, I'm at that point for sure.
But they suck balls.
Yep.
And that's just the way it is. They're not good. and you know, I get really frustrated when folks are like, yes, they are. Well, you know what? My Beretta 21A, this little pocket pistol, is, you know, it holds 8 rounds. A 22 revolver holds 8 rounds. But you know what? I'm about to buy I'm probably going to buy an 8-round 22 revolver because they're just awesome. They're super cool. And in much the same way, I want to do an experiment with AKs because I've heard from these AK folks over the years that, an AK is absolutely as good, if not better, than an AR-15. And I was told by an older gentleman that a standard 7.62 by 39 AK is easier to shoot and more effective than an M16A1. Well, I said, okay, fine. I'm going to go to PSA and I'm going to buy one of their AKs and we're just going to do this experiment because getting the PSA left plenty of room for upgrades. I could put my budget towards that. And also I wanted to test, a lot of folks are saying now, the PSA ones are absolutely as good as an Arsenal. Spoiler alert, they are not as good as an Arsenal. They aren't, not even close. But there is still an okay gun, I guess. I had some problems with it. The op rod was horrifically bent, so it looked like it was having some sort of erectile dysfunction problem, and it had to go back to the factory, and they had to replace a bunch of parts, and that took time and really sucked. But got that taken care of. The gun ran really, really well, but it became immediately apparent to me that without upgrades, this gun was not even close to being as effective as an AR-15. Not even close, not even in the same ballpark, not even close. So I started upgrading it and upgrading it and upgrading it. And I dumped a lot of money into it. I've got a crazy rail on it. I've got an MRO. I've got a mod light on it. I've got a Magpul K2 grip. I put the ALG trigger in it, which, God, that's a good trigger. I put a JMac custom muzzle brake on it, which is the craziest muzzle brake I've ever tried. And after all this money has been spent, now the gun costs more than an Arsenal. It's still not as good. It's got every upgrade. A lot of people who've shot this have said it's literally the best AK they've ever shot. And it's still, on the clock, is 30% slower than a modern AR-15 with all of this stuff added. And it's not even more reliable. I've had a couple malfunctions, and the AKs that I've seen in general are just not as resilient to stuff getting in the action as an AR-15 is, because an AR-15 is sealed up. And I'm not just saying it's popular to say that now because of the in-range tests, but I've seen this with my own eyes.
Well, and they're still getting crap for that. That was years ago, and people are still saying they were shilling and they were faking the test because the AK is the most reliable, just like a revolver. A revolver can never malfunction, right? Except when it does, and it's absolutely catastrophic, and you need to break out your bit kit to pull off the side plate, where pretty much everything except, like, was it your Glock 45 that broke a firing pin, or your CZ or something?
Both.
Okay, well, other than that, like, you pretty much just tap rack and move on. The AR-15 is so surprised me, and it's almost impossible at this point to argue for a civilian in America, the United States of America, if you're just going for pure practicality. The AR-15 is America's rifle at this point, but man, there's just something cool about AKs. I love them. My Vepr, it was my favorite rifle, for sure. It's just, 5.45 and everything. Thanks a lot, Obama. But there's just something cool about them, isn't there? And is there anything wrong with that? As long as you're not fighting people in the YouTube comments because they don't also think it's the best thing. I just don't understand that mindset. You can like something, and I don't have to like it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's strange because that's been my experience. I love shooting the AK. I love it. I shoot it all the time. It is so much fun. I love it. But it isn't as good. It's not as good. It's not even close to being as good. It's not even in the same ballpark because the AR-15 is so refined at this point. While the AK, we're really just trying to make it better by bolting stuff to the sort of existing mechanism. It's like, well, screw this thing to the front of it and screw this thing to the back. It'll make it better. Whereas the AR-15, we've worked on gas port size, buffers, the length of the action. People have screwed around with different bolt coatings, and we're a lot further along. They're also from two completely different generations of assault rifle as well, which is part of it. But I don't understand why we can't just say, hey, the AK is not ideal. It's just fun. Why can't it just be about fun? That's why I prefer shooting revolvers, because it's just fun. Like in a home defense situation, am I going to reach for a revolver? No, I'd be an idiot to do that. But I love shooting them at the range. It's my personal preference. And a testament to the AR-15's reliability, man, some of y'all are going to squirm when I say this. I don't clean them. I've stopped cleaning them. I haven't cleaned an AR-15 in a year and a half. I just squirt more lube into it, and it keeps running. They run. I'm not saying you should do this. You should definitely not do this. You should clean yours all the time. But all of mine, just as long as they're lubed, they just kind of run indefinitely. And that gas tube kind of just blows all the shit out of there, and it just keeps on going. Now, eventually, it will have so much carbon in it that it will stop, and you'll have to clean it. But it takes a long time to get there.
Well, that's another thing, is a lot of the ammunition we use for AR-15s is domestically made, relatively high quality and clean ammunition, where the AK, man, it's hard to find high quality ammunition for it, so you are just piling crap in there. And then I think it has something to do with not only the buffer system in an AK, but also the bolt ride. It's so hefty, and then it rides on those rails that it comes up quicker, I've noticed. I don't know if you've noticed that too, but the AR, you slap some more lube in there, keep on trucking. Where the AK, I've noticed, it gets gummy. Have you noticed that?
Yeah, and I thought that was really interesting, because folks always say about the AR-15, like, it shits where it eats. It dumps all the carbon back into the... Well, the fucking AK does exactly the same thing. I mean, how is that any different? Because now on a short stroke gas piston, yes, you are correct. Less gas goes into the chamber. So, for instance, I have two Berettas, both of which have a short stroke piston, one of which is actually a shotgun, and the other which is the Beretta ARX rifle. There is no carbon in the chamber there. There's not. But on the AK and the AR-15, I think my AK is worse than the AR-15, like you said, because of the ammo. Like, if I shoot 200 rounds through it, there's just a hilarious amount of shit in there after that. Meanwhile, my ARs have less stuff. It's less gummy, and that's just down to, like you said, the quality of the ammo. But it is funny. The short stroke piston, I will concede, they do introduce less junk into the chamber, but then the piston itself is where all the junk goes, and then you just have to clean the piston out. So there's none of this is free. You're gonna have to clean the crap out of the rifle. It's going somewhere. It doesn't just teleport out of the gun.
It cracks me up how many accessories for the AK are like clamp on. Like you put so many nuts and bolts on an AK just to do something simple like mount a flashlight. And the AR, you have a aluminum, super thin, robust, free floated gas tube and barrel, and you just like twist a few like M-lock nuts, and it's completely rock solid on there. And the AK, you're like, oh man, where's my bicycle inner tube? I need to get a torque wrench, and I need to do all this stuff. Hey, by the way, do you have my diamond files?
Yeah, that's the other thing too. Is that, AKs, so much fitting is required. Like, working on an AK is real. Working on you're really working on a gun. AR-15 stuff, you're just assembling Legos. You're not a gun. People be like, I do my own gunsmithing. No, you put some pins in, you put some fitted pins into a thing that holds it to another thing.
The hardest part of putting together an AR-15 is trying to keep from launching detents, and to capture that back retaining spring that goes behind the end plate. And even companies right now like Arrow and stuff, they have threaded ones, so you literally don't have to worry about that anymore. Assembling an AR-15 is quite possibly the easiest thing in the gun industry, like gun world hobby, to do. Where like even doing something simple on an AK, like changing out the front handguard, it's an afternoon project. Like it's close to actual gunsmithing to do simple things.
Yeah. I mean, it's the real. Working on an AK is it's the real deal. But I just don't understand why it can't just be fun. And let's talk about revolver reliability. Like you touched on that a little bit briefly, but it's funny. I heard that myth growing up that revolvers are so much more reliable, and modern revolvers. Well, I shouldn't say it's not that revolvers have gotten less reliable. That's not it at all. It's that autoloaders have gotten so reliable. That revolvers now they're lagging. They're, I would much sooner trust one of my Glocks or Beretta HK or Walther, to than trust a revolver, especially if it's a revolver I've never shot before.
Right. Well, that's the thing. Revolvers, luckily, just anecdotally, if they're going to have a problem, it's very quick. So as long as you put some rounds through it, like a 250 to 500, pretty much your revolver is good to go. However, they don't seem to handle high round counts as well as automatics. I think it was Claude Warner I heard say that revolvers handle neglect better, but automatics handle abuse better. And for the average American shooter who puts a box maybe through a year, there is something really nice about a revolver where you can load it, put it in your sock drawer, and literally not touch it again until your kids are cleaning out your stuff after you've passed on. And it will still work, as long as the ammunition's not wet or something, it'll still work like it did the day you put it in the sock drawer. Where if you do that with a Glock or something, you could have issues. The springs could be wonky, or there could be issues. It's not as much of an issue anymore because even magazine springs, they really only degrade with repeated cycles, but it's still, the revolver will handle it better. However, I don't know of any revolvers that have 90,000 rounds on them, like the H&K P30 in the military testing and stuff like that. Like, if you open up a revolver, it looks like a watch or like some sort of fine old world engineering where everything was designed to be hand fit, and now it's made on a CNC machine by a robot, but it still is arguably too complicated inside there, where like you can put a Glock together with a 1/8 punch, like the entire thing, every single part on it, and there's only a handful of parts on it. It's just engineering machines has progressed so much, and the rotating cylinder revolver design is kind of stuck in the late 1800s, which is fine because it's cool and it's fun and it's still practical, but it's hard to argue that it's better than any modern design. Can you think of a single modern design that has not eclipsed wheel gun tech?
I mean, not really. I mean,
that double action 22 Magnum, where it shoots.
That's probably the. Yeah, and one side doesn't stabilize the bullet, and it flies sideways into the target. Yeah, that looked really fun. That looked great. Carl made that look super fun. By the way, I love Carl. Carl's just my favorite. He's my favorite person. I love Carl. No, I mean, I really can't think. I can't think of a single revolver that does. That doesn't also have a companion auto loader that works better. The only thing that revolvers still unequivocally do well is huge, powerful loads. I really like Magnum revolver stuff, and some of those top end 44 Magnum loads. Really, the Desert Eagle is kind of the only thing that gets close to those. But anything below, mid to high powered 44 Magnum, there's a better auto loading option. And you can't, we're talking about defensive options. Like, that's not a defensive pistol, because like my 44 Magnum revolver has a 7.5-inch barrel and weighs 4 pounds,
Right. You
so
might as well have their AR pistol.
Yeah. And that's going to be infinitely more effective, for the same size and weight. An AR-15 pistol is going to also then eclipse the large revolver in a defensive situation. So really, unless you're planning to shoot some deers, well, okay, and let's talk about this as well. Folks talk about using a revolver for bear defense. That is an excellent idea, but if your gun weighs 4 pounds, at that point, I'm no expert, but I would rather shoot the bear 5 or 10 times with a 5.56.
Yeah, no joke.
Personally, wouldn't you?
Honestly, your Glock 40. You have an RMR. You have a super powerful weapon light. It's lighter than your 44, and you have 2.5 times the ammo capacity. You put 3 or 4 10 millimeters in a bear's face. That's going to be effective, I would assume.
Yeah, that's true. And so some of the 44 Magnum loads that I have, one 44 is about equivalent to 2 and some change 10 millimeters in terms of muzzle energy. I know that doesn't equate directly, but I think you can shoot, you can get more 10 millimeters out of there faster than you can shoot the 44. Not because 44 has a lot of recoil. It's just revolvers just don't have the same firing speed unless you're Jerry Mitchell. Like,
Yeah, everything from trigger travel to trigger weight to you. If you try to shoot the revolver too fast, I've noticed I tend to short stroke it, which you wouldn't do on a Glock. Like, there's just a lot of mechanical factors that go into the split times on a revolver, and yeah, like there's 100 or 150 grandmaster shooters with semi-automatics, and there's one Jerry Mitchell, you know, like it's just it's an infinitely more difficult to obtain skill, and I would venture to say any hunter that is trekking around Alaska would be better served with a 10 millimeter Glock than a 44. What would that be? An N frame, K frame?
I guess I'm with the big ones. I'm a Ruger person over a certain size.
The Smith and Wesson naming conventions is similar to Beretta, where like unless you're in the know, it is just a confusing gobbledygook of letters.
Yeah. Yes, indeed. I prefer the way Ruger does things. They're just everything's little, kind of big, real big, and super big. Those are your options.
That's their name. That's their names.
Yeah, that's right.
I'll take the Ruger super big in 44, please.
Please, I'd like a super big and 454. Yeah, and you know the trigger is definitely a factor. Like I tried to do some double taps with the 44 as fast as I could. Well, they're not double taps; they're just fucking doubles. I hate when people say, "What the fuck is a double tap?"
Control pairs.
Yeah, that's right. I love controlling pairs. That's one of my favorite fruits. So yeah, and about the fastest that I could get them out of the gun and hit at 20 or so yards was like pop, pop. And that they were grouping pretty close together, but like with it really did just come down to the trigger. I mean, it's a great trigger, but it's just so much trigger to pull through.
Controlled pairs is the Veggie Tales and 50 Shades of Grey porno parody.
that weird that cucumber tied up those pairs.
Yeah, honestly, I know you always undersell yourself, but like you achieving that with a 44 took a ton of practice and dedication to revolver craft, and I'm just thinking the average Jim Bob wouldn't be able to do that.
Yeah, I mean, because I started with a revolver. I mean, I'm still horrific, like with any gun. Like it's pretty bad. But I started with a revolver with a Colt snubby, which I still have. It's one of my. It's really, you know, that's been a constant in my life. I've loved that gun. I'll die with that gun, with that Colt. You know, starting there, that was the only gun I had to shoot fast. So I was like, I'm just gonna see how far I can take this platform. And I think, you know, obviously if you get closer with 44, you can shoot faster than that. But I like 20 yards for that gun because 44 and 357 both have a lot more range than people imagine. Like you can make some remarkably long shots with both of those cartridges.
Well, and they still have the weight and velocity to have terminal effect.
Yeah, and you can really see that. Like if you shoot steel with a 44 at, let's say, 50 yards, it at 50 yards moves the steel around like 10 millimeter plus speed. That's like 10 yards away. It's pretty crazy. I mean, that smacks with some authority.
If you were to hypothetically, you know, go on a Bigfoot hunt, what gun would you take with you? Because, like, you're more likely to encounter, even if you believe in Bigfoot, you're more likely to encounter a bear or something. Also, very high probability, even if you do see Bigfoot, it's just a person in a costume, so a person caliber would work fine. But you also have the downside of if Bigfoot happens to be an interstellar, like, intergalactic alien or a creature from a parallel universe, because UFO sightings and ghost sightings also go up in Bigfoot areas. Like, now you're fighting a psychic alien. I'm assuming you'd want even a bigger caliber than a bear caliber. So it really, that question really ranges the gamut from like, what do you think the overall most versatile woods gun could be? Because you could encounter anything from like a bobcat or a bear, all the way up to an intergalactic parallel universe space psychic alien.
Yeah, I mean, so you and I both always, and I would posit this same question to you. You and I always tend to favor convenience. I feel like just generally, and for that reason, you know, I have this Glock 40 MOS. I mean, that's definitely going to be the choice, mostly because it's putting out, you know, 600-700 foot-pounds of energy, but I don't really shoot it any differently than a 9mm. I mean, there is a difference. I'm not saying there's not more recoil, but I'm saying that in terms of sort of the overall performance of the gun, it's not so radically different that it's off-putting. It basically is like having a really big 9mm pistol.
Well, yeah, and luckily you have video proof, because I would have called bullshit. But it's either because you're not great with 9mm or you're really great with 10mm. But your splits, what we were at, like 15 yards, with that Glock 40 is seriously impressive.
Thank you.
Yeah,
thank
it
you.
is.
Seriously,
it is.
Thank you.
Yeah, that video is. I honestly, I obviously believed you because it's, you know, it's you. But like seeing the video, I was like, oh shit, no, he was serious. Like that is solid. That's solid performance.
Thanks. I really appreciate it. Yeah, it was just, I love 10mm. I love that gun. And so I would think that, you know, for the convenient choice, like it's definitely that. But if I didn't care about convenience, I mean, to me, it's just like, I'm always going to choose like an AR-15, like a 16, either an 11.5 or a 16-inch AR-15. If I thought there was any way that I was going to be attacked by anything, land sharks, velociraptors, cryptids, terrorists, man in a Bigfoot costume who's feeling forcibly amorous, regardless of what of what it is, I would feel most comfortable if weight were no concern with an AR-15. So what about you?
An 11.5 pencil AR-15 on something ultra light like the What Would Stoner Do, if SBR laws weren't a thing, like that would be around I'm guessing a 4.5, 5, probably like a 4.5 pound gun, and then like 6 pounds fully loaded. Something like that with a light. That would be such a compelling option, in all honesty, because you're right. Even though it's a 223 5.56, which is basically like, you know, serious, really, really, really serious 22 Magnum, that could cover just about everything. As some people might not like it for bear or moose or elk or something, but honestly, man, at that point it's just rounds down range over actual effect of one round. My first thought was some light, like a Henry or something, lever action for 4570. Just for, I can't imagine needing more than 7 or 8 rounds in that scenario. And it's light, it's easy to pack, where like an AR-15 gets a little bit cumbersome through the woods. I would assume, I've never done it. I'm just thinking magazines and charging handles and safeties, and unless you get one that like a Law Tactical folder or something, but then you're adding to the weight, those are almost a pound. I'm thinking like a 4570 lever gun, or maybe a 44 special lever gun, where you get the bare level terminal ballistics while also having something slick that you can just like keep in a scabbard on your backpack, or I don't know. What do you think about that? Something like a lever gun. Am I on the right track, do you think?
Well, so I've shot a lot of lever guns and a lot of 4570 lever gun, and I'm about to say something fuddly.
Okay.
So I just want to prepare everyone for this, because I apologize. I don't normally say stuff like this. If I were in a situation where I could not have a semi-automatic rifle, lever guns in the right hands, in like, let's say within 50 yards, they have the bullet hose thing going on. Like a lever gun can be fired so fast. And so there was this, I had this friend who had done a lot of cowboy action shooting. He was an older fella, and he could literally fire it like pop, 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 pop. It was really, really fast, and I was watching this guy like, what the fuck? I didn't even know you could do that with one of those guns. So I've been very impressed with lever guns, but the fuddly thing I'm gonna say is that under certain circumstances, because they're so svelte, they really are more convenient and easier to carry in the woods. They really are. You were, in my opinion, you were right about that. Because like even those Marlin 4570s are much smaller and lighter than you think they're going to be. Your shoulder's going to be pissed off about that later.
Right.
But
well, that was what I was thinking.
just,
like chances are
yeah.
it's a dude in a costume and you don't have to use it. But if you do have to use it, the terminal performance is really solid for that type of application. And then with the modern options, you can throw a mod light on there. You can have a acro or some little dot and have a pretty substantial level of precision for the caliber, where you really don't get that like in a revolver unless you put an RMR or something on the revolver with the mount. But then your revolver is probably pushing 3-4 pounds. Like I would rather have the capability of a long gun. It's just, I was thinking just the chance of actually using it is so slim, because either you camp for nothing because most people don't see Bigfoots, big feet, big feet. And then if you do, chances are, based on all the hoaxes, it's a dude in a costume. There's like a 1 out of a bazillion chance it's an actual creature, in which case it's about the same size as like a bear and a gorilla having a baby. So whatever could kill a gorilla or a bear-sized gorilla or a gorilla-sized bear should work for it. And then if it is an intergalactic psychic alien, then you're screwed anyway. So you might as well make some big pop-pops before it vaporizes you, you know? So, I don't know. 4570 is probably where, or maybe 44 special, just because then I could have the prepper combo of a sidearm and a carbine using the same ammo.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. And, you know, it's interesting that you mentioned 44 Special. You know, that's a remarkably effective option for folks who want to carry their 44 Magnums. You know, let's say you get a small 44 and you just absolutely adore that gun. 44 Special really doesn't suck as badly as it seems like it does ballistically. I mean, if you like 45 ACP, I mean, you're probably going to like 44 Special decently. And then if you can put 44 Magnums in the gun, I've shot a couple of those smaller 44 carry revolvers, and even those, like, it sucks to shoot it, sure, like, it's not fun at all, but you can get pretty decently good with those things.
Well, how about this? So you just got me thinking, because I was thinking every gun I pick, I try to pick something that's scalable from, you know, my wife to me or whoever would need it at the time. So I tend to like the lighter loads, even though they're less effective, because they're more bullet hosey for me and they're more manageable for her. And I was thinking 44 Special over Magnum, but then that got me thinking, what about 327 Federal Magnum? Because then you can run something fairly close. It's like 85% of 357, but you get one extra round in your carry gun. I don't know if you get any extra in the tube on a lever gun, but you can scale that all the way from 32 long, which is like a powder puff 22 Magnum style recoil load, all the way up to something pushing 357 in the same package. Do you think that that ballistics would be effective for that usage case?
I don't know. I mean, I think a lot of, you know, I'm not a hunter, but I think a lot of those guys tend to prefer, you know, calibers that just sort of bash through bone and, you know, whatever else. I don't know if that zippy little cartridge is going to be, it'd be super effective against deer and people and stuff like that, but it's so little and zippy. I don't know if how well it would do against something really, you know, really large and serious. But I mean, shot placement is everything. I would think it would be, I think if you got the shot in the right point, it'd zip through, you know, their soft bits as easily as anything else, right?
I don't know, man. I have noticed, like, even with stuff like hogs and stuff, they have thick skulls, so the people definitely go 6.5, 300 blackout. Like, they up the weight of the projectile. So maybe 327, yeah, it's not going to crush bone, and you're not really dumping energy as much as you are, like, poking holes. I don't know. It could be interesting. If you poke the right hole, it should work in anything. It will just be more affected by your shot placement, right?
And 327 is just a compelling caliber in general. I think, you know, it's been kind of weird to see that one get overlooked. Like, I really thought that, especially this year since we've all been branching out into different calibers. I was hoping we would see more folks give 327 a try. But as you pointed out, you've seen it every time you've gone to the store, and I looked around online yesterday, and I was like, oh yeah, it's pretty much still readily available, isn't it?
Yep, it's 32 ACP and 327, the actual defensive loads. I haven't seen any range ammo, but yeah, I've seen defensive 327 and 32 ACP for some reason. Every single time I go to a range locally, it's like completely bare shelves except for 2 little stacks of those types of ammos. And then with rifles, it's basically just oddball stuff. Like I see a lot of 7mm for some reason.
Yeah. Well, speaking of 32, I've shot a lot of 32 this year. I've got a few more guns coming up in the small 32 experiment, and I've been really pleased with how the CZ70 has done, because it feels very modern. It's a good alternative to something like the PPK, but 32 is also another just completely overlooked caliber.
I believe it. We need a modern option. I was so excited when the Beretta Pico came out. Do you remember that one? It kind of came out, fizzled, and died right away. It was the 380 version of the Beretta Nano, and now the Nano is the APX subcompact or something. I forget, but originally they were going to have a 32 conversion barrel for the Pico, and that's what was going to make me buy it, because it was so little in the 380. It was extraordinarily unpleasant to shoot. However, in 32, with the polymer construction, the Picos had a chassis before it was cool, before Sig made it cool, and you could have gotten some solid pocket carry performance out of that little Pico. It had real sights, replaceable sights. It wasn't a tilting barrel or a rotating barrel like the PX4s, the rotating barrels, but it's still, I think that would have been a really compelling option. Other than the Kel-Tec P32, there really hasn't been a 32 carry gun released since, the LCP kind of took the world by storm?
Yeah, I mean, because of the popularity of 380, I mean, there are really only 232s that are in sort of large scale production that you can even buy. Now there's there are the C camps and all that stuff, but there's so few of those are made.
North American Arms as well.
Yeah, but it's really just the Kel-Tec and the Beretta, and between those two, the Kel-Tec is more convenient, but sucks to shoot. The Beretta is less convenient and fun to shoot. It's just,
the Kel-Tec is 9 ounces or something. It's ridiculous.
It's ridiculously small, but it is. So the Beretta shoots like a real gun. Mm-hmm. You can take it. It's a little bit
chunky, but that makes it so pleasant.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it has. The recoil is amazingly low. It's real, because 32 out of a super tiny gun. I'm not saying it has a lot of recoil. That's not what I mean. But I'm saying it's not going to be an effortless 22. There will be a slight bit of recoil to manage, and the Tomcat cuts down on that substantially from the Kel-Tec.
The small, it has nothing to do with the cartridge being unwieldy or anything. You just get guns that small, man. The force has to go somewhere. Yeah,
exactly. It's just the way it is. There's nothing that can be done about it, and the Beretta has enough mass that it feels, in terms of recoil, it feels like shooting one of the large 380s. When you shoot 380 in a gun that's really like too large for it, almost.
Yeah,
that's
kind of
what recoil feels
M&P
like.
Easy.
Yeah, exactly. Where something is still happening for sure, but it's really minimal, and you're not going to have any issue overcoming it. But it's not like 22 where it just is like a laser. Now, though, when you put 32 in a larger gun like the Beretta Cheetah, it is like shooting a laser gun. Like just the slide just moves back and forth, and boom booms come out of the front of the gun. It's great.
Pew pew pew.
Yeah, and also something else I like about 32 is it's really quiet. I noticed this at the range the other day. Like 32 compared to 10 millimeter, it's just really, really quiet.
Even at an indoor range, it's noticeable that you're not shooting a 9 millimeter with a comp, or even the 38 special with the cylinder gap and everything. It's loud. The 32 sounds not as loud as you think it's going to be. And outside, it's nothing.
Yeah. Yeah, outside, I mean, it's a little bit louder than 22, and there's no blast as well. So 32, if you're in a confined space and you're having to, for retention reasons, you're having to hold the gun a little bit closer to your face to keep it out of the hands of someone else. You're going to feel a lot better about touching off a few rounds there with it closer to your noggin. Because even with I think both you and I love compensators, and the Glock's really the Glock 10mm is really the only gun that I'm shooting regularly. The only pistol, what am I trying to say? Service pistol that doesn't have a compensator. You in those retention positions, even with the Glock, the little Griffin micro comp with it close to my face, I do feel blast. Like it's coming back and tickling my eyebrows a little bit. And well, that was really tough for me to say for some reason.
Yeah, it just feels like a warm little pff on your face.
Yeah.
But if you get it too close, you could have problems. But the nice part is it's not like porting or something where you get spall back. So there's not really any danger that I've seen, but you definitely feel it. And if you get some exposed skin or something too close, you could get a slight burn, I guess. But even that, I doubt it is as bad as even the cylinder burn on a J-frame.
No, and I've gotten my thumb close to the cylinder gap on a 44 before, and a 357 firing full power loads, and man, I mean it'll break the skin.
That woke you right up.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember. The first time I thought I had been stung by an insect or something, and then I realized, oh no, I'm just using a thumb's forward grip like a wiener here with this 44, and I just took a huge chunk of skin off my fucking finger.
That is the hardest thing to break when you switch from regular defensive shooting to revolver shooting. Is man, if I'm not shooting revolver constantly, my thumb creeps up every time. Which is why I'm a fan of 38, because nothing happens other than it feels like, I don't know, the gas is like flicking your thumb a little bit. It's not bad, but man, that is a hard habit to break once you get the proper. It just feels so secure,
Well, hey, now that you've gone down this revolver road pretty far. We both talked about how we're really tired of the older folks recommending to younger new shooters, buy the Smith & Wesson 38 Airweight. Obviously, that's a bad idea. But how long did it take you before you felt like, this is viable for me? Like I could use this effectively if I had to defend myself.
Well, you see, it's difficult to gauge a time because. I got the P365 experiment in there, and I really did carry that every day, and did 25 hours of classes or so. So I had so much time on the P365 interspersed there. The main usage for the revolver was a break. It was fun. If I was taking a break, I would mess around with the revolver, and also kind of became my de facto sweatpants gun around the house. So I would carry the P365 out and about, and then I got home, P365 goes in the safe, and revolver comes out and gets clipped to my sweatpants or whatever I'm wearing, gym shorts, that type of thing. Mow the lawn, have the J-frame, that kind of thing. So really, it was more comfort carry for probably too long to be responsible. I would say it probably took about 500 rounds, and running through the reps of drills you gave me to get used to it. Once I could reliably draw from the holster with the correct, I ended up settling on the tucked thumbs grip without thinking about it. And then when I was able to do controlled pairs from low ready to a head box at 7 yards, 100% of the time, I got way more comfortable with it. I'm still not great at reloading them. However, I did at one of my low light classes get to try to reload the J-frame one-handed in the dark, which was a hoot. But yeah, I'd say it took probably about 500 rounds, countless dry fire reps, and getting comfortable with a few different drills. Do you remember what drills you recommended?
So the big one, I think, is just being able to sort of comfortably evacuate all of the rounds out of the gun quickly and then increasing that speed. You know, that's the most important one, I feel like. And I think the other most important one is sort of being able to just manage your ammo and get the speed loader in it as fast as possible. And then then there's the thunderstruck drill, where you try and do those controlled pairs to the cadence of thunderstruck, which is so stupid.
It works. It works.
It's so dumb. So, you know, one of the things that blew my mind completely is just because this sort of confirmed something that it had always sort of been in the back of my mind. I think it probably always been in the back of your mind as well. So when you did Project One Gun, one of the things that became really apparent was, even though the 365 is probably better in every single way, like if you don't love your gun, if you're not just having a really amazing time with that gun, that alone might make it the wrong gun for you. What do you think about that?
That is a huge, you know, did you start watching Nut and Fancy in like early YouTube like I did?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. So in Nut and Fancy reviews, he always has an entire segment of his reviews, in his 17-hour long reviews, where he talks about second kind of cool. And his second kind of cool was always like, wow, it looks like a military thing, or wouldn't this be cool for SHTF, WROL? He always has acronyms for everything. Size and weight constraints, SAWC. But so I never really put much stock into it, and as my YouTube handle moniker entails, I really try to be practical and minimalist with everything, and I try not to have useless tactics. So for a lot of my firearm journey, as I was quotey fingers finding myself as I was assembling a proper everyday carry for my lifestyle and taking defensive shooting classes, and I always tried to pick the most practical thing. And it is hard to argue that for an average Joe, everyday concealed carrier, just someone who wants to protect themselves and their family, the P365 XL in particular and the Glock 43X in particular are extraordinarily compelling. And I think you found that too with the Glock 43X. The problem is, for me, I just don't trust SIG. And there's been so many lawsuits and so many quotey fingers voluntary safety recalls and guns firing in their holsters and drop safe issues and strikers breaking, and there's been like 4 or 5 secret generations and revisions to the P365, but they never tell anyone. So you have to kind of look at your serial number and kind of figure out when it was born, and then you can kind of figure out what extractor it has, because there's been 4 different extractors. And the Aero Precision Slide, aftermarket Grey Ghost Precision Slide, doesn't work with this style of extractor, but they don't tell you which style extractor it is. You just have to figure. I just don't like it. Like, I just don't like them. So while my P365 XL was flawless, I had 3, I want to say, malfunctions in over 5,000 rounds. And they were all magazine related. 100% of them, I immediately knew what it was and fixed it. It's just, the gun did nothing for me. Was it practical? Yes. 13 rounds on tap in such a small, concealable, affordable package, optic cut from the factory. Like, that's almost unthinkable, and it would have been unthinkable even 5 years ago. Like, we are in a golden age, but I never looked forward to putting it on. I always kind of in the back of my head had some doubt. Like, every class it made it through, I was like, phew, it made it through. I didn't have to break out my backup gun. Where at least with the 43X, I think I would feel confident that it will work every time I need it to work, and it's robust. I think the 43X will last almost as long as the full-size guns. I've had fantastic luck with the 43 and the 42 and the 48, and so it's not even a reliability or a brand reputation thing at that point. It's just, I don't care. I don't like them. They don't excite me. If I was going to get a 43X, I can carry a 19. I carried a 17 for 4 years. Like, it just does nothing for me. So at this point in my journey, I have my practical guns that have no purpose other than being the most practical guns, like my pencil AR, and then everything else is kind of fun. And the priority is, it makes me excited. And the tertiary effect is it could also be flexed into defense if I need it. but there's not a high probability I need it. So I'm no longer going to sacrifice fun for that tiny little percentage. So like, I love the J-frames. They're comfortable, they're concealable, they're convenient, and I could shoot them well at this point. I'm no gun penguin or Jerry Michalik, but I'm a lot better with them. But the chance of me having to use it are slim, but the chance of me getting to enjoy it is high, so I'm going to enjoy it. Same with the Beretta. I'm so much looking forward to running the Langdon through an extraordinarily high round count. Is it the most practical? I don't know. I've never run a double single in depth before, but it excites me, so that's the direction I went. And I'm looking a lot more at what's exciting. I'm looking very heavily into completing a 7.5 AR project. Is that practical? A lot of people would argue not, but it's exciting to me. So that's kind of the direction I'm personally moving my content in the future. I'm doing series on things that I find interesting and not series on things that I think are most, I don't know, click based. The P365 got great views, and I was going to continue that series just for the views, and at some point it was like, why? I'm just going to do what I find interesting. What do you think about that? Are you kind of moving that way too? You've always kind of been more on the, you've had an eclectic taste.
I just like esoteric guns, I guess. I don't know. I'm going to continue with my long-term goal is I want to have every small pocket pistol from every era that I can possibly get, and I want to run them through all of the tests and put out a video on them. So that's not practical at all, but I'm testing to see, how practical are they? Were they practical? In a lot of cases, they're more practical than revolvers. And they're still of some utility now. Most of them have some use that we can find. But past that, I really only do stuff that I find interesting. So like, I've quit reviewing 9mm pistols, even though that's what everybody demands that I review, just because I don't care. So it's costing me views and subscribers, but I don't care.
I would argue though that pocket pistols, if you look at the data of defensive civilian gunfight encounters, that is practical. And while the designs might be outdated or, collectibles or vintage, so there's historical context there which you could explore. It still is practical, and for some people, especially in these ammo shortages and, gun buying, panic buying runs, you might only have a 32 pocket pistol you inherited as your only gun.
Yeah.
So there is a demand for that type of content, and there's a fine line between I carry a North American Arms pocket revolver because any gun is better than no gun, and having to carry a Glock 34 with an X300 and an RMR to feel prepared or you're going to get killed in the streets, right? There's a center ground where most people fall into, and myself included. I live in a relatively safe area. I know where I'm going every day. Right now, I'm at the office and the door's locked. So, do I need a 18-round Beretta with a Mod Light and a RMR? I could carry it because it's fun, and I don't want anyone not to carry what they think is fun. But, practically, statistically, I'm well armed with this little J-frame and one reload in my bag that's sitting by my feet.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm with you all the way. I hate the folks with the tiny North American Arms revolvers, saying no, it's anything that just needs to be a gun that holds a bullet that shoots the bullet out. That is taking it too far. But I don't think you're underarmed with a Tomcat and a spare magazine at all. That's probably enough power for 99% of bad situations. Now, do things happen where you need more bullets? Good Lord, yes, they do. There are tons of documented defensive shootings where somebody did have to reload. 9mm was definitely the right caliber. Absolutely, it was, and maybe even a rifle would have been a better option in that scenario.
A rifle would have been a better option.
Yeah, absolutely. But what we're doing is, like you said, you take a look at your life and you say, well, I don't go dangerous places, and I know I know what's going to happen here generally, so I make a choice that this gun, the convenience outweighs the incredibly low potential risk. And I think that's a completely fine way to look at it. And some of it is also, what are you physically capable of carrying? Because, it would be great for everyone to have a USP expert stuffed down the front of their pants with the jet funnel and the huge slide. But, some people, they're not going to be able to get a holster that fits. The holster's itchy. They wear tight pants and their shirt's tight. And, so having a gun that works with all that is going to be the most important thing, because ultimately you need to be comfortable more than it matters that you have a million extra rounds, because odds are good you're not going to get in a defensive shooting, but the odds are very good that a gun that's too big is going to make your balls itchy and give you a rash. So
right, yeah, comfort for sure, and that is probably the largest factor that people consider, and that leads them to pick not great guns for their self-defense. Also, though, the thing that I find more than comfort, because I've carried a Glock 17 with a comp and weapon light, and it's that the comfort part isn't a deterring factor for me. But one of the things I constantly now, because of my current employment, have to juggle is the risk of being caught without a gun, and then pair that up with the risk of being caught with a gun. If that makes sense. Concealment is the difference between possible legal issues and or losing a client and or getting fired, or you know what I mean? There's more possible consequence than just dying in a gunfight at a 7-Eleven that I don't go to anyway. So there's a lot of factors that people don't consider, and I've noticed a lot of the popular personalities, influencers, are either full-time gun marketers, which is what an influencer is, or they're tactical trainers, or they're police, or they're military, and they're like, well, if you don't carry this, and you're not serious about it. It's like, bro, I work in a locked office building. I went from a locked home to a locked car to a locked office building, back to a locked car, back to a locked home. And if someone sees it, there's massive financial consequence. So the chance of me getting in a physical life or death altercation is significantly lower than me reaching the top shelf to get a coffee mug down and someone seeing the holster, So there's a lot of factors that people need to consider, and that's not even including comfort and body type and capability and willingness financially and time-wise to train, and it's almost endless, the amount of variation.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's like you compare that to, I own a gun store inside my business. I wear a full-on Safariland rig, with the whole thing, because it makes sense there. It's a sensible thing to do, and it's far more comfortable.
Right. Well, and it makes a lot of sense, because at a gun store you have a much higher chance of meeting a heavily armed person.
Exactly.
So yeah, I carry the biggest gun you can. That's a good idea.
So I carry the Glock 40 MOS with 2 spare magazines and a PMag, because 5.56 PMag, because like you said, gun stores get robbed all the fucking time. But otherwise, doesn't it make more sense to have a 32 in your pocket if you're sitting at your desk? Typing an email out. So it's Project One Gun, I really like the idea, and I think that everyone should try that, because I think it maybe helps you figure out what you need and what you like, and whether those things may be the same thing, they may not be the same thing. It also might tell you how willing you are to deviate from what you like, to carry what you need, and it could also show you that you don't need quite as much crap as all the crap that you got right now. Like, so, like I test guns on YouTube, that's great and all, and I'm kind of a collector, but I don't need any of that shit. And we talk so much about needing it. It's things like, I need a gun for this. I need my laundry gun, and then I need my national park gun, and then I got my car gun, and then my jacket gun, and then my going to the dinner gun. And it's like, that's
barbecue gun?
Yeah, your barbecue gun. Like, shut the fuck up. Like, you don't need all that shit.
I don't even live in Sasquatch County, and I need my Sasquatch gun.
That's right. That's my alligator gun, even though I live in Idaho. And if you have a genuine need for a gun, that's one thing. But most of these guns, we have them because they're cool and we like them. Don't be telling motherfuckers that you have to have it to live. Like, that's stupid. Just be like, I love this gun. It's cool, and that's why I have it.
That's a huge foundational principle in the minimalist movement, is separating philosophically needs from wants. Even in personal finance, it's really big in the Susie Ormond and Dave Ramsey philosophies. Separating need from want. Modern consumer Americans are so bad at differentiating need from want, and it's honestly not our fault. We have the most complex, manipulative marketing ever conceived by human beings. Like, we scientifically know exactly what works to create a need response, a panic response that only their product can fix. And it's almost chemical at this point. And that's why there's so much advertising law about advertising towards children, is because it is so effective at convincing you need something you do not need, right? Because we all know what we need. We need water, we need food, we need shelter, but upgrading from the PlayStation 4 to the PlayStation 5 is a completely frivolous want, right? But we say we need it because, Cyberpunk only runs on the PS5 and I need. You do not need it, you want it. And so even with firearms, like personal finance, firearms, I've noticed a lot of the principles are all, synchronized. Something from personal finance will apply perfectly to firearms.
Well, tell me more about the minimalist movement. What do you think we would all be happier if we followed those principles?
Maybe. I don't like to make sweeping generalized statements about other people. I just know it makes me happier. And while I annoy you sometimes with okay, but I'm only gonna have one rifle. So if I'm gonna have one rifle, what do I put, that type of thing? But really, it's the whole idea of the modern minimalist movement. It's almost kind of repurposing of Stoicism, where the less time you spend making frivolous consumer decisions, the more time you have to spend on stuff that is truly life-changing. So a lot of minimalists have minimal wardrobes, or have some sort of I wear these jeans and this undershirt and this sweatshirt every day. Because we've figured out, just from a free will, willpower, neuroscience perspective, that you only have so many good decisions per day. So the more you waste on stupid stuff, like what am I going to wear, that's the reason why it's 2 a.m. and you're eating chips and salsa, even though you said you were going to be on a diet, and you just can't resist, right? It's because you've used up all your willpower for the day. So you're trying to simplify your life by only spending time on what matters the most to you, and it requires a lot of self-reflection on what matters most to you. So does saving up for your retirement mean more to you, or does traveling with your spouse while you're both still young and healthy, does that mean more to you? Or do you want to have a Tesla and a paid-off house? Or it's not so much getting rid of stuff. Like some people do, they're called extreme minimalist, where it's my entire life fits in one suitcase, or I only have 37 belongings. But most minimalism is stop worrying about buying stuff and buy experiences. Buy things that enrich your life, not... there's so many people that I saw lose their house and belongings and businesses in 2007, 2008, that they were working 70, 80 hours a week for a $400,000 house that they were literally never in. Why? Because Fight Club, we spend all of our time working to buy stuff we don't need to impress people we don't like. So minimalism is just kind of the idea of stripping away the consumerism to get towards what you really did. I answer your question? I'm rambling.
No, you did. No, that's absolutely it. I just wanted to sort of get an overview for how we could apply those principles to our
It's
our
more.
average lives.
I think it's more like picking out little nuggets. So like I like to read a lot of theological text from the world's religions. Right now, I'm reading a lot about Jainism. However, like I don't agree with most, if not all of it, but you occasionally find something where you're like, "Whoa, that's profound." It doesn't matter the source; it can apply. I feel it's not really the overarching philosophy as much as you occasionally can pick out and repurpose some principles, if that makes sense.
Sure. Yeah, yeah. No, that definitely makes sense. Absolutely. Well, do you think going forward you're going to sort of have a few more guns that fill a few more wants, or do you think you're going to kind of stick with hey, I've got my Beretta, this is my automatic pistol, I've got my revolver, this is my revolver, and go from there?
Yes. So I kind of have my needs done. So I'm spending the majority of my time and money and energy on getting better, training and stuff. But that also frees up the free money to just have fun with. So I'm trying to detach. So like for instance, I used to be really deep into the Glock ecosystem because of the grip angle and the spare parts and the magazines and I didn't really want to try a SIG or a Beretta or something because when I rented one at the range, the grip angle threw me off, right? I hear that all the time. Oh, grip angle, grip angle. As I've gotten better at shooting, it takes me a mag or so to get used to the new grip angle. It's really not a bother. Do you find that?
Yeah, I mean, I've got to be honest. I don't really see any difference between any of the automatic pistols in terms of like fire. Like it's all just minor differences to
Are you
me for
noticing
some
that even with the
reason.
dot now that you have dots on everything?
Yeah, I mean, it's maybe even more so with the dot. I mean, as long as the gun has a dot. It's just like it's all just the same. As long as
Your
it
brain
has a
just kind of
dot,
finds the dot?
yeah, because like I've shot striker fired guns. I've shot striker fired guns and hammer fired guns equally, over the years. So like I don't even just sort of subconsciously I don't care about the grips. Like I have HKs, Berettas, Glocks. It's all the same to me for some reason. I have preferences. I don't mean that I don't have preferences. Like how I much prefer paddle magazine releases, for instance.
Oh,
And I think
preach.
yeah, oh, it's God, they're good. And I think the P30, the HK P30 grip's probably the best grip that's ever been designed for a handgun. But I don't. If you hand me a Glock, you got a Glock, it's fine. If you hand me an HK, you got an HK, that's great. So that's kind of how I feel about it.
Right. So, just historically for myself, I found that like I was so into the Glock ecosystem and so worried about changing things up that I really didn't allow myself to have fun because I was so defensive, skills oriented, and I wanted to get as good as I could. And I was solid with the Glock 17. But since doing the Project One gun and now getting into wheel guns and expanding my horizons to the double singles and like even John Lovell, I noticed in his P365 video, he said he would never switch to it even though it was a better gun because of the grip angle. And I was like, I just can't imagine that at this point, but I remember when I thought that too. And so I have my solid stable of purpose-built practical utility guns, right? That's done now. So now I can just kind of have fun again, and I don't have to worry about, training bad habits or it's just whatever gun I'm carrying, I make sure that's the last gun I handle and put the last mag through, and then I holster it, and I'm good to go. It really doesn't bother me to switch. So now, yes, I'm done with my practical minimalist arsenal, but I'm also kind of freed up now to experiment with the different guns that just are cool, that just interest me,
Yeah.
that it's the second kind of cool. And that's what's exciting to me about 2021 and beyond is like you and I are both, I think we're going to be both getting a 22 of some sort, revolver.
Yes.
And it's like,
Yeah.
man, I want to run the wheels off that. Will it be a practical gun for me? No, probably not. But it doesn't have to be at this point because my practical needs are all covered.
Yeah, no, that's totally fair, and I think this is a good time. This is a good time for that. during the pandemic. This is a good time to branch out. While we can't get the standard calibers, there's never been a better time to explore and see like what do you like. And one of the things that I've found over the years is there a lot of the stuff that people say, it is completely wrong. Like the stuff about grip angle, for instance. I had a lot of trainers tell me that over the years. Grip angle, you can't. This has the superior grip angle. Well, everything has a pro and a con, right? So, the Walther has a much more vertical grip angle, but that also means guns with the vertical grip angle point more naturally because you just point your arms straight out like a fist, and the gun is where you want it to be. Whereas with the Glock, we're always doing that angling thing to get it on there, but it handles recoil a little bit better. Everything is a pro and a con, and that's never discussed. Like if you have a gun with higher bore axis, it also probably points a little bit more naturally than a gun with a lower bore axis. And
the lower the bore axis, the higher chance of user-induced malfunction, slide bite, getting it caught on clothing or gloves, or like there's definitely a downside to everything. And just like we're finding with most of the topics we discussed, it's really more gray and user preference and nuanced than the two camps are willing to let it be.
Definitely. I look at the way hammer-fired guns are discussed by the folks who... people describe them as being obsolescent. Hammer-fired guns, I'm probably sounding fuddly again, but I don't see any difference between the two. It's just a matter of preference. There's no difference in my performance because I shot revolvers for so many years. My first shot is no different than my second shot. My mind doesn't even perceive that there was a difference between the first and the second shot, especially if I'm going fast and I feel a little bit more comfortable, pointing that gun at my balls if I can drop the hammer, and know that I've got that 12-pound trigger pull. So I've never understood. I'm only concerned about raw performance, and I know you're the same. And if there's no difference for me, then why can't I just go with whatever is just my weird preference that day?
Right, and like even with striker-fired guns, I found myself trying to make them more and more like a hammer-fired gun. By every single Glock I own, I have a striker control device on for that very reason. I appendix carry 95% of the time, and I have been in class before, and it's 6 hours in, 300 rounds, and like some classes, like I know tactical response is really big about not looking at your holster because you're in a gunfight, bro. You can't look down, and like I am very careful to cock my hips out, look down, make sure my holster's clear, and like it never fails. At least once per class, I won't remember to look down. Right? You just get complacent. Everyone does. So the fact that I can thumb the hammer, and like obviously I still look down to make sure the holster's clear, and I use a Kydex holster that doesn't close when the gun's removed, and there's a lot of safety features already built in, but it's just one extra passive safety that you don't have to worry about that can prevent an oopsie that is life altering. If you Google Glock leg, it's all trained people with holes in their leg, cops, and like you can argue about the training of cops or military, or there's a reason why the government makes every government handgun have a safety. It's because they know with 100,000 people there's going to be oopsies. And it's just one extra thing, one extra safety. So like even with the striker-fired guns, I found myself gravitating towards the benefits of a double action, single action, and then going from a J-frame with it's a performance center, so it's a nice trigger pull, but it's still heavy and long, to the P365 XL, which had like a 5-pound trigger that was mushy but very short. I had no discernible difference in skill. I didn't have to think about it. Like I could shoot both of them about the same. That is one of the fears that keeps a lot of people away, is the two trigger pulls. And if you would just put in a little bit of time and effort, I think that it can be trained out for all but the most incompetent of shooters.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, and I'm not even kidding. Like with some training after a year, you will not even recognize that there is any difference between the two. You just push through and keep shooting. It's fine. And there's this thing that trainers do where they say that what I'm telling you right now is the truth of the matter. There are no other matters. This is it right here. This is the truth of shooting. I know the truth. This is my philosophy. And you can't say that. There is a situation where almost anything is the right option. You pick some obscure thing. There's some situation where a single shot 22 is the right answer, under some really bizarre legal or social circumstance, right? And I don't like these blanket statements that folks make. So, oh man, yeah, Project One Gun was super interesting. I really appreciate you walking me through all this. This was an awesome podcast, and it's also going to be delightfully long for the folks who I know really enjoy the long ones. So this was great.
I didn't have any doubts that we were going to make it extremely long.
Yeah, as you said, it's a full Rogan.
We're getting closer. This is the closest we've gotten to a full Rogan, I'm pretty sure. If the full Rogan lasts longer than 4 hours, we need to contact our physician. So luckily, the full Rogan is going to be over well within that time frame. However, I mean, this is what, number 4 or 5? I'm sure by 20 we'll hit a dangerous level of Rogan.
Easily, yeah, easily. Only though, hopefully we will be nicer and better informed than Joe Rogan with less misogyny.
Well, no, I'm a huge fan of the Joe Rogan format, where I literally just have no stance and agree with whatever the guest says.
Yeah, that's right. Even if it conflicts with the guest who was on just the day prior.
Or the same day.
Oh, man, that's awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining me. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, thanks, man. It was always a good time, and I'm sure we'll be back a little bit more consistently going forward.
Awesome. Well, that sounds great to me. Well, you have a wonderful afternoon, and I will talk to you soon.